Hi everyone, Elder Brad Durson here. This is a short summary of a week number 4 gathering. For anybody that may have had technical difficulties, remember that attendance is always important and it's part of your grade. And just as a side note, about 2 years ago, something very monumental occurred at the October 22 General Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. President Nelson announced the 4th temple to be built in Nigeria. 4 temples in Nigeria and 20 temples in Africa. Isn't that amazing? Then we went on to discuss the devotional by Sister Johnson about silent souls weeping, changing the conversation about mental health. And we wound up with the question, why can mental illness sometimes be difficult to talk about? Here in week 4, we covered parts of an essay and Thinkiing Errors. We began with a welcoming and one of our former students sharing a Pathway story of his experience going through Pathway and what it did for him and where he is now at BYU, Idaho. We continued with that by going over a review of what the devotional was about. We took about 20 minutes to talk about the basic parts of an essay. Also 20 minutes to talk about Thinkiing Errors review. And then we wound up with comments and closing prayer. And the components are, number 1, a hook, something that gets you interested. A thesis statement starts off your essay. A topic sentence, supporting detail, concluding sentence, and a concluding paragraph. So let's talk about each one of those components. A hook. A hook is something that captures your reader's attention. And a thesis statement summarizes the main points of an essay and typically appears in the introduction. Next is the structure of the paragraph. You begin with a topic sentence. A topic sentence in a paragraph is where you introduce an idea in the topic sentence. Then you support it with details and then connect the support back to the main controlling idea through a concluding sentence. And the last element of an essay is a concluding paragraph. A concluding paragraph provides a final summary of the main points discussed in the essay. Now let's analyze 2 different paragraphs of an essay. And the prompt that is the purpose of the essay, or the question that it's addressing, is what is one thing you can do to overcome a specific thinking error? Now let's take a look at all of those elements again. There's a hook. That's everything in the gray. And then there's a thesis statement. Everything in the yellow. Think of what a hook is. Gains attention. What is a thesis statement? It tells you what you're going to be talking about. So stop the tape right now and read both the gray and the yellow portion. And ask yourself for the gray portion, how does the hook give context to the rest of the essay? Don't just go right over this. Stop the video. And the second question addresses the yellow thesis statement. And that's down here. Read that and answer this question. How does the thesis statement focus the essay? So the paragraph didn't end at that last slide. It continues. And the prompt is the same. What one thing can you do to overcome a specific thinking error? And it's all color-coded again with the topic sentence in gray. Read the topic sentence to yourself. The supporting detail in yellow, read that to yourself. And the concluding sentence in green, read that and answer these 3 questions about the topic sentence in gray, and the supporting detail in yellow, and the controlling idea or the concluding sentence in green. Stop the tape and answer those questions for yourself. And now we come to the concluding paragraph. And what is the one purpose of a concluding paragraph? Think about it. Read this gray portion to yourself and answer this one question. Remember, stop the tape and answer that question, either in your mind, verbally, or write it down. But stop the tape and answer the question. That was one of the 2 20-minute blocks that our lesson was segmented into. The next block is about thinking errors. In thinking errors, there are 10 of them: victimization, pride, entitlement, powerlessness, giving up, justification, scarcity mentality, people-pleasing, minimize or catastrophizing, and deceit. Thinking errors are failures in judgment. They are incorrect ways of looking at the world. Because of your distorted view, you tend to act in ways that don't resolve the problem, but instead make it worse or add new problems. How common is this to all of us? So let's take a look at what some of those thinking errors are. Because as children of God living in an imperfect world, all of us are at risk to a variety of thinking errors. Here are the 10 thinking errors. Victimization. Do you feel like you're being harmed by people that have no intention of harming you? Well, then that's a thinking error. How about this? Pride. Your perceived status in the world is based on how you compare yourself to others. Do we do that? I know I do. Entitlement. Well, you deserve this or that because of your perceived status in the world. Has being entitled ever helped anybody out? Powerlessness. Let's say you just give up. You can't do this. You can't do that. You don't even try. Then there's giving up. Well, because you messed up and you think, I'll never be able to do this, you just give up and you stop trying. How much of our progress is limited because we have just given up? Another thinking error is justification. Well, you can do this because it's not a big deal, even though it's a bad thing to do, or maybe you're being pressured into it, or you deserve a little fun, or everybody else is doing it. I know it's a stupid thing to do, but everybody else is doing it, so I might as well too. That is a big thinking error. Then there is the scarcity mentality. Let's say, well, there's never enough food, there's never enough money, there's never enough time, there's never enough skill. Everything is too scarce. In reality, this world is full of abundance that we can take advantage of in our own unique and individual ways. And at times, yes, there will be scarcity, but that's not something that has to come into a thinking error that negatively affects one's life. And next is people-pleasing. Oh my goodness, how common is this? Well, you must please or impress others to maintain your value as a person, or to keep from being devalued as a person. How bad is that? Do we try and impress others? Do we try and please other people? I think that's a weakness in many more people than we realize, where courage is a thinking positive rather than just kowtowing and try to please people. Now the next is minimize or catastrophize. Let's say something's not that big a deal, but you distort the issues or events and choices, and you really make them either bigger than they really are, like your own faults. Does that sound familiar? Or you minimize them where, this isn't so bad, I can go ahead and do it, it's okay, when it's really not. So both of those, minimizing and catastrophizing, are thinking errors that do not add to your personal growth or a positive mindset or a growth mindset. And then there's deceit. You tell yourself that something is really different than the way it is. I remember when I was a young child and my parents would scold me, and I would think to myself, how dare they think I would do that? I did it, but how dare they think that I do that? This was one of those thinking errors where Jasmine is trying to quit smoking, and she has gone for 3 weeks without smoking. Then one day, she has a relapse and smokes a cigarette. Okay, I get it, she smokes a cigarette. But afterwards, she is so disappointed in her relapse that she decides her efforts to quit smoking aren't good enough. I just hit the microphone. And so she smokes the rest of the pack before the day ends. And soon Jasmine resumed smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So if you had these options in front of you, what would be the thinking errors? Well, our class thought of there was the denial, there was that's not so bad, and there was justifying or just giving up. And all of those are ways of describing some of the thinking errors that harm our personal growth and progress. And we concluded this week by sharing our thoughts in a discussion. We shared some testimonies. So at the conclusion of this lesson, remember that thinking errors are a lapse of good judgment, and they are fueled by stress or boredom or loneliness or being tired or being hungry, just basically stressed out, something that in greater or lesser way we all experience. So what are some of the thinking errors? How can we visualize that? You've probably heard of this story of all of the Indian people feeling the parts of an elephant, not being able to see the rest, and thinking that's all there was. Well, these thinking errors, they keep us from seeing things as they really are. And lastly, search for peace. Peace can be found by eliminating those thinking errors, and peace can be found within your personal belief system. And our belief system that is the sponsoring institution of BYU Idaho is that we can find peace in Christ. And we hope that you will continually identify the stress and thinking errors in your life so that you can feel more peace and draw upon sources of divinity. God bless you. Have a great week. See you next Thursday.